What if we talked about something fun, like a nice, casual, warm spring day? Unprecedented heat wave across the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. The whole region's turned to a raging inferno. Yeah, I knew about this primarily because I saw artists from the Philippines drawing their OCs, like sweating in bed, waving a fan. You know, this is how I found out about that. I wish I learned about more news that way, to be honest. Yeah, this is pretty bad. Nepal 42 degrees. Oh my god. Myanmar 45. Let me just bust out my American units calculator for just a moment, if I may. 45 degrees Celsius in real units. 113 degrees Fahrenheit over here in Myanmar. That's great. 113 degrees. That's super cool. Is this the are these the high temperatures, or was this just like at a snapshot in time, this is how warm it was, you know? Hey, listen, okay? Dengist coastal development be damned. It sure is nice to be in the underdeveloped backwater of China right now, huh? You know? There's still, unbeknownst to the media, there's still 50 million, like, Chinese peasants doing subsistence farming that think that, like, Mao is still beating back the Japanese on the eastern coast. They're just, like, chilling, you know? It's nice and cozy over here. They're just living life, you know? That's Tibet. Not all of that is Tibet. I don't know what they're doing in Tibet right now. But yeah, the mountains are definitely protecting them from the heat. The Cultural Revolution is still happening to them. Yeah, over here, tens of millions of Chinese peasants are still running around throwing rocks at sparrows. That's what they're up to. They're like, what a crisp, roughly 30 degree in Fahrenheit day. I could never remember that any. Yeah. That's the Tibetan Plateau. Yeah, I know this is where the mountains are. These are the most famous mountains in the world. Vosh, that is Tibet. This whole green area is not Tibet. Come on, guys. Yes, I know. Free Tibet. Thank you. Look, okay. You know what they're doing over there in Tibet? Okay. You know what they're doing over there in Tibet? Getting slaughtered by Lara Croft. Anyone been watching the... Yes, it is. Oh my God. It literally is, Vosh. Okay, are Tibet's borders smaller in my head? Hold on 1 second. I'm going to get really pedantic with you guys because you're really annoying me right now, okay? All right? I'm remembering a much smaller area than the entirety of that section. Are you guys kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? Please tell me that the Tibet Autonomous Region is not the same as Tibet, like, broadly. Please tell me that this is not what you guys were referring to. This is fully a third of the area we were pointing at. I hate you. I know where Tibet is, okay? This whole area right here, you think China doesn't have mountains? That Tibet is the entirety of the... I'm not letting you get me down. I'm not letting you get... yes. Streaming. It's a good job. It's a good job. All right. Okay, I'm here. I'm here now. All right, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm good. Positive vibes for the end of the world. Positive vibes for the end of the world. Whew. I was referring to this. Oh, okay. The, like, Tibetan Empire circa 700 AD. Which, yeah, that would line up a lot better. Okay, my apologies, guys. You were referring to the 700 AD Tufan Tibetan Empire. My apologies, okay? You know, we were distinguishing it from the Tang Dynasty, all right? Okay, my apologies. All right, I was wrong. I'm learning. And I'm living. All right. Yeah, this is pretty hot, huh? Like, that's pretty hot. Are you laughing and loving too? All the time. Yeah. So about the whole end of the world thing, this is pretty bad. I take it there were also droughts going on in this region. Gradient minimum systematic night was 20 greens. Gotcha. Inside an oven, sweltering heat ravages crops and takes lives in Southeast Asia. Governments issue health warnings as schools shut and crops fail, with fears that worse is to come as heat wave tightens grip. Man, it really is awesome how the West got to enjoy all the benefits of industrialization like a little bit earlier. So we get to be fully industrialized at the expense of the planet, and now the least industrialized parts of the world get to suffer for it. You know, that's pretty cool. I mean, in fairness, this isn't just the least industrialized parts of the world, right? Like, this is pretty much all of Southeast Asia. This is like 3 billion people. Guys, this is almost half of the population of the planet. Indonesia, the Philippines, the populated regions of China, India. This is like, this is like, yeah, like half the world right here. Probably more than half. Yeah, it probably is, honestly. Most of them don't even have air conditioning. Yeah. Both the Philippines and Bangladesh shut schools due to an unbearable heat wave. last month, while governments across the region have issued health warnings. In Thailand, at least 30 people have died from heat stroke since the start of the year. Jesus Christ. Hold on 1 second. Just had to respond to something. There we go. It's pretty bad. The amount of suffering is kind of unimaginable. Yeah, it kind of is. Bangladesh experienced its hottest April ever recorded, with daily maximum temperatures between 2 degrees and 8 degrees Celsius hotter than the 33.2 degree Celsius average daily high for the month. Cool. In Myanmar, 48.2 degrees Celsius was reached in the town of Chuk in central Magway region, the hottest April temperature since records began. Cool. Go up a paragraph. Oh, how could I miss the extreme weather has seen durian fruit burst on trees in Thailand, destroying rice crops, causing eggs to shrink according to local media. The heat has been cited as a factor that led to an ammunition blast in Cambodia that killed 20 soldiers at an army base last weekend. Jesus Christ. In Vietnam, 102 weather stations reported record highs. Can somebody find me that website where it tracks the, like, ocean temperature per year on average over the world, and then you see, like, in 2023 it was way higher than every other, and the spike at the beginning of 2024 was even higher than that? Can somebody find that site for me? Excuse me. Can we set off a volcano to reduce global temperatures? I mean, you joke, but we're almost certainly going to be doing geoengineering to solve this. The global economy can't really survive this at its continuing rate of worsening, you know? It can't really... This? Hold on. Yeah, this one right here, but I want, like, a new one, because this is from May 2023. See? The black line is the mean, and then this dark orange is 2022, and then this dark red is 2023, but I want, like, the active ongoing one. This one? Sea surface temperature? No, it's formatted like the one we're looking at right here. ClimateReanalyzer.org seems to be where it's from. So if somebody could find that. Good, but not quite. Here's one with 2024. Promising. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that'll do. Thank you. Whew, boy. You know, what's the hopium lining here? Stop asking me that. This is the first time that our classes have been suspended because of the hot weather, she said. We have 47 students in our class. Even with electric fans, it's still hot. And usually there are only 2 electric fans switched on because ceiling fans in some of the rooms are broken. After 9 or 10 in the morning, the water becomes too hot and the ducks don't want to go in it anymore. They just go in the shade and hide under the trees. Jesus. In normal weather, 80 to 90% of young ducks will lay eggs, but now when it's so hot, it's down to 60% or even down to 50%. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these areas are going to be hitting the wet bulb temperature. I mean, they are hitting the wet bulb temperature. It's, you know, it's not just the mass deaths either. It's just that, like, everything shuts down when things get this bad. I don't even know. There's not even anything you can really do about it. There's no human technology that's capable of, like, powering 4 billion people through that. That's just not something we have. What's the wet bulb temperature? The wet bulb temperature is the point where you can no longer really sweat, and then you die. We need a new term for wet bulb temperature that implies how dangerous it is. Yeah, it's like a scientific term that's being applied. You know, we're talking about, like, human safety, basically. Sweating is the mechanism that you use to cool down because you sweat and then the water evaporates and takes heat from your skin with it. But if the heat is too high or the humidity is too high or some combination of them, sweating no longer really works anymore, and you reach the wet bulb temperature, and you can't lose weight. You can't lose temperature anymore, basically. So you just, like, you're on, like, a path to being cooked there. Millions of students across the Philippines ordered to stay home. Millions switching to online lessons. At least we have the infrastructure for that. Cold showers for the win. Yeah, but a lot of these people can't even take cold showers, right? A lot of their, like, think of where that water is coming from, you know? The water staying cold would mean that it would have to be pretty deep underground and not be subject to that warmth. And that's not always the case. Like, sometimes the water that they pull it from, water's underground. Not always. It depends on where it's stored, you know? Sometimes there's, like, a, you know, minimum temp that you can get that water down to, and it's not even that high. Do you think there's tech that can be invented to reverse this? Well, we can do geoengineering. Most countries use water towers. Yeah, it really depends on the area, you know, and where it's stored. It's still infinitely easier to do than making colonies on Mars. Oh, well, yeah, we could do we have the tech for geoengineering if we want to. Like, we don't even need, like, modern tech that much, you know. We could, you know, it's pretty easy to do if you wanted to. How does it work? We spray shit into the sky that reflects a portion of the sun's light back, and we reduce the amount of light that hits the Earth, thereby reducing the total heat in the system. Good luck, kid, with your frozen shorts or swim trunks or whatever. Why aren't we doing that already? Because it doesn't actually fix the issue with it doesn't fix the issue with the greenhouse gases that trap heat. So if you start, first of all, like there are like it's this is we're talking like planet altering technology here, you know. But like if we ever stopped doing the geoengineering, there would be a rubber banding effect where the temperature would rapidly catch up to the point that it would have been if we had never done it at all. It would be worse. So it has to be like paired with an actual reduction in the climate change or in the greenhouse gas propagation. I just can't imagine how uncomfortable it is. This sounds like a weird sort of point to pull to as well, but you guys should think about stuff like this when you talk about or when you think about the arguments that racists make about civilizational development or technology or IQ or anything else. Can you imagine like how difficult it would be and on any individual level to excel in an environment where it's so uncomfortably hot, like to begin with, like let alone everything else, right? But like I can't imagine it does very much for like the students doing their schoolwork or anything like that, you know? And it's like so much of this is environmental that, you know, we're worsening. Oh, hello. Yeah, 100 degrees with no AC, now learn math. Exactly. I've heard that too, BB Noy, yeah. That we were accidentally doing geoengineering with the chemicals that were in the fuel we burned in boats, and we've stopped doing that. So now things are like heating up very rapidly, you know? Gotta go back. Gotta return. AC is the only reason people still live in Florida. Florida, what about Arizona, you know? Keep in mind, we're just looking at a few news articles here, but we are talking about a heat wave that's affecting like half the population of the planet. So, you know, think of all the news articles that we read on something like, you know, right-wing protester drives car through crowd, and then remember that that's like 200 people were there, and now we're talking about 4 billion people at minimum. So just keep that in mind as we get these little snapshots. Yeah, I remember reading this, I think. We've been accidentally geoengineering the Earth for decades. We have to go back. We have to go back. It turned out the sulfur dioxide being emitted by the ships wasn't simply making air quality worse, it was also seeding low-lying ocean clouds, brightening them and causing them to reflect sunlight away from the planet to cool things down. We need to load artillery with giant reflective particles. We need to fire glitter into the high atmosphere. It's the only way. So we made it worse by using a cleaner burning fuel? Yes. Would bringing back 80s hairspray help? Maybe it would. Who knows? You don't know if you don't try. Can we do cloud seeding on a massive scale? Yes. We could. It's just whether or not we want to. We have better chemicals to do this than sulfur dioxide, Jossie the Lib. We have less destructive chemicals for cloud seeding. You can use seawater for cloud seeding. Yeah, you can, can't you? You just need anything up there in the air, right? If you're firing seawater, you know, what we need to do is build a colossal railgun that just constantly sprays seawater up in the air. That's what we need. Why don't we just make a massive mirror like in Futurama? I mean, that is a proposed idea. It's not impossible either. That is like a doable thing. Be expensive. Yeah, it's called the albedo of the Earth. It's important, and it shrunk because of the ice caps. The ice caps reflected the most amount of light on Earth, and them shrinking fucked us up. Yeah. Like the process is accelerating. Real Engineering has a video on cloud seeding in the space lens. I'm sure he does. He's great. No joke, sailboats with seawater jets could do a lot. Probably, yeah. Is that true, Curse These Metal Hands? They're still cool, though. I just know if we weren't under the whims of corporations and countries actually band together, we could fix this. Well, no, the real issue here is that any effort that we do to seed the clouds is going to have a very strong impact on the water cycle for this planet, which means that invariably some countries are going to be pretty nervous if they like really rely on a specific cycle. For example, like if they understand that, you know, any change to it could really f them up. That it's very possible that any changes made could disproportionately affect them negatively. No matter what happens, the West will be fine because we're the West, we have the money and the power. But if you're in like Indonesia and it's like, oh, actually, like it's very possible that the rain season will be changed and you're just going to have like a permadrought now. You know, you just the climate of your area might be irreparably changed. Like it's not even like a cycle thing you weather through. It's just like, no, you don't get that anymore. You don't get enough rain to sustain the current like climate over there. So people would be nervous about it. Yeah, or it rains too much, you know, can also happen. Sounds good, doesn't work. Well, no, it could work. It's just, you know, it's spooky is the thing, you know? It could work, but it's spooky. There's a perma-drought in central Cali. I grew up in Cali, trust me, I know about it. Yeah, Benjamin, carbon capture technology still seems to be kind of a meme. Unless something like really magical changes about it, I don't know if that's going to be the case. It seems like our bets here are pretty much like reflect a bunch of the sunlight through cloud seeding, or yeah, pretty much that, huh? Keir Starmer believes in carbon capture. Of course he does. He's a stooge for business, and carbon capture is like the technology that least implicates corporations or changes the status quo. Well, anyway, I think we're just doom scrolling at this point, much as it might be valid given the conditions, you know. Check this out: carbon recapture plant in Iceland uses geothermal power. It's yeah, I mean, it's just like this doesn't really. The facility consists of 8 collector containers with an annual capture capacity of 500 tons each. Annual capture capacity of 500 tons. This whole facility, 8 of them. So what, 4,000 tons per year of carbon captured? It like that's like nothing, you know. That's like a it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's all from like geothermal, so I guess it's kind of free, but it's yeah, it's nothing. What do you do with the carbon capture? You like bury it underground or something. You have to like store it too, you know? Exactly, Noel. It's a f***ing start at least. Sure. Yeah, it's just it's a start. It's like it's a start in the sense of like, I don't know, you're using a vacuum to suck up dust from the edges of a collapsed building that people are screaming inside of, you know? I don't necessarily think the vacuum is hurting, but there's probably other, you know, it's probably you know, unless some magic happens. I just don't know what magic could make this viable, largely because of the storage element of it, you know. Um, I mean, they probably used so much carbon, or sorry, they emitted so much carbon just in producing the facility. Like the concrete needed to build it takes a lot of emits a lot of carbon dioxide. The steel, you know, like they probably, you know, it's like you make like an electric car, and it's like, okay, maybe this will save this. You know, how much should it take to make the car relative to how much you save? It's mostly an electricity cost. Yeah, but you know, I mean, I guess maybe in Finland, a lot of their electricity comes from renewable sources, but that carbon is sold to use in industry, I guess. Storage isn't an issue. There's tons of spaces that you could use for it. It's also essential to get to net zero. The ICCC has no scenarios where we get to net zero without it. I don't know how it's essential to get to. I just we no technology exists to even remotely scale this to the necessary level. I don't know. Yeah, exactly, Andy. It's just so much. We're dealing with such a scale. Right now, it's a scale problem, but massive investment can make a big difference. No, 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 no. It couldn't. The problem isn't we need more money being put into this. We need a totally different technology doing it. Like whatever this is, running 24/7, using energy, constructing the facility. Like it's not just a matter of like, well, we just need a bigger one, you know? It's that like this is fundamentally unviable. This rate of processing, this will never work at scale. You'd be building facilities the size of cities. So we, you know, we would need some other way of doing it. I don't really know. No, the technology we have needs to increase in efficiency, but it needs to by orders of magnitude, not just like we need to tweak out the efficiency a little bit, but like by enormous amounts. And even then, I don't know what we do with all that stored carbon. The logistics of transporting all that carbon would be massive on its own. Yeah, but that's how solar started. Yeah, but it's different with solar because with solar, you're reaching up to a maximum optimal amount of energy per like photon that strikes the voltaic panel, right? Like there, you're talking, we're not talking orders of magnitude in the same way. Like what this would need, like this would need to be like 1,000 times more effective. And even then, so what are you going to do with all the stored carbon? Just store it? Well, we can't just store all of that. Turn it into construction bricks? That doesn't. Okay. They use the carbon to build super materials. They don't need 50 billion tons of carbon to build super material. That's not how it's. Do you know how much energy it would take just transporting all of that, let alone the physical storage space? You know, launch it into the sun with a railgun? Well, that might work. Can we store the collected carbon like we would nuclear waste? Sure, it would just take, you know, we would need like millions of times more space. We have carbon-based materials, it's called wood. Yeah, but stored carbon isn't the same as wood. Capture, transport. Pumping it through pipelines, the cheapest form of transportation, is a well-known, reliable technology. There are 5,800 kilometers of CO2 pipelines in the U.S. transporting CO2 to oil production fields where the CO2 is injected to help produce more oil. Oh, well, that's great. That's great for that's a great use case for reducing yeah, you know, use the carbon to extract more oil that then goes back in the atmosphere. CO2 can be stored in 2 main ways. Deep ocean storage will increase ocean acidification, which is not good. Geological formations are considered the most promising storage sites. Man, like, we're talking millions of tons of CO2, you know? And keep in mind, this CO2 is being stored in gas form. or geosequestration, a technique. CO2 is converted into a high-pressure liquid-like form known as supercritical CO2 that behaves like a runny liquid. So we're literally just going to like inject millions of tons of hyper-compressed climate change gas so deep pressurized that it's like a liquid. What happens if there's an earthquake? Like, unironically, you know, if there's an earthquake that up a nuclear radioactive material storage facility, then it's just okay, you go down there and fix the cracks, right? Like, it's not like all of the radioactive material like explodes outward and instantly like goes up into the atmosphere or whatever. Unminable coal, which is coal too deep or difficult to mine, can be used to store CO2. Oh, great. Wouldn't that just end up being like the carbon gases being released by pockets in glacial ice? I mean, I just don't think it's like a good long-term strategy. Back in my days, we called carbon capture trees. Yeah, well, that works too. I did my thesis on carbon capture storage. There's enough room for storage for all the CO2 emitted since the Industrial Revolution, and the safety concerns are minimal. Okay, you could be right on that. I just don't buy it. I just genuinely don't think, like, yeah, no problems, we can just store 50 squadrillion tons of hyper-pressurized carbon dioxide. I don't believe that. Maybe. And that doesn't solve the problem of actually getting it out of the atmosphere. But, you know, have you considered diamonds? It's CO2, not just carbon. We can all just hold our breath. That's also true. The tech can't be scaled. Okay, just a second. We need to move on from this because I've actually been very rude and we're having people on in a second. Okay, hold on just a second, okay? Hold on. How much power does this take? Orca carbon capture power drain. Power use. Please tell me this information is publicly available. How many watts? This equates roughly to the emissions from 870 cars. Nice. It doesn't say here. How much energy does it take to run these? Yeah, ENG, but not everything can be powered by geothermal. I still want to know how much energy it takes. The first minute of Adam's video explains why the cost is absurd. Bill Gates is big on this. Well, yeah, which is an argument against it. Hello, Adam something.
Carbon capture isn't real. Wait, yes it is. Here in Switzerland, a giant new machine is sucking carbon directly from the air. Developers say the plant will capture about 900 tons of CO2 annually, or the approximate level released from 200 cars. Or how about the world's largest carbon capture plant, Orca in Iceland, designed to filter up to 4,000 tons of CO2 a year. Yes, these projects do exist and they do suck CO2 out of the atmosphere. But carbon capture, as advertised, still isn't real. Let me explain. So the Orca each year captures 4,000
Vosh, this is Adam something's worst video. He gets everything wrong. This one is much better. Oh, how convenient. And it's a 17-minute video, going beyond my attention span. How convenient. Engineering with Rosie. What did he get wrong? He hasn't said anything like that you could contest yet.
From mind control using psychedelic drugs to satellites that could shoot, and at worst, a fig leaf that allows fossil fuel companies cover to continue burning. So let's dive into the world of DAC, how the technology works, who's doing it, and the controversial role of DAC in our mission to combat climate change. Well, let's assume for a minute that DAC is genuinely aimed at offsetting unavoidable emissions only. Then we must ask, is it the best approach? Alternatives exist, such as tree planting, bioenergy with carbon capture, mineral carbonation, and other carbon utilization methods that I've covered on this channel before. And all of those technologies are likely to end up cheaper than direct air capture. The cost of sequestering a ton of CO2 through DAC today is $1,400 US per ton.
Jesus.
If you do a one-off order through Climeworks website, which as far as I'm aware is the only DAC company allowing purchases of captured CO2 from an existing project today. And if you've got $1,400 to spend per ton of CO2 abated, there really aren't many sectors that you couldn't decarbonize fully for that. It's throw money at. The hype surrounding DAC right now is strong. A lot of money is being poured into the industry, and a lot of that money comes from companies who have an incentive.
That's not comparable, Benjamin.
Even
the efficiency of solar is about what percentage of the sun's light it can utilize when it hits the photovoltaic panel. The efficiency of this is limited by an actual thermodynamic barrier. It's the same as like desalination, you know? Scrubbing carbon from the air has there is a actual like thermodynamic limit to the efficient. You can't make that 10 times more efficient. It'd be like saying like, you know, bikes aren't efficient enough, we can develop a more efficient bike. And it's like, oh, we can like change the design of the pedals and gear shift so it's 1% more efficient energy-wise. And you're like, no, I want to make it 10 times more efficient. How? You can't make a bike 10 times more efficient. It's not possible. You're at a limit thermodynamically to how to what can be done there, you know?
Stated intention to use DAC to divert attention away from decarbonisation and thereby delay real progress on climate change. DAC isn't a technology for today, it's a technology we need to be ready in 20 years. And in technology adoption timeframes, that is a bloody long time. Think how much our energy technologies have changed since 2003, when only rich hippies had solar panels on their roofs. DAC is on track to be there when we need it, without any need to get involved in greenwashing type projects like enhanced oil recovery or complicated government subsidies for projects that put more CO2 into the atmosphere than they ever took out of it, as has been the case with so many previously subsidized CCS projects. My opinion is that if fossil fuel companies think that they're going to be able to use direct air capture to continue on with business as usual, then there is something terribly wrong with their incentives. Here's my radical idea. Don't pay climate subsidies to projects that result in more CO2 ending up in the atmosphere. To conclude, DAC isn't—
Okay, I don't have a problem with this lady. I just don't understand, like, in terms of viability, like,
4,000 tons of CO2, translating to about 11 tons per day or about half a ton per hour. Capturing 1 ton of CO2 costs 2,650 kilowatt hours, or so they say. Ooh. So here's the problem. The average coal power plant spews out about a kilogram of CO2 per kilowatt hour, meaning to produce those 2,650 kilowatt hours necessary to capture 1 ton of CO2, the average coal power plant has to emit 2.65 tons of CO2. So if you run this carbon capture plant off a coal power plant, you'll capture 1 ton and produce 2.65 tons. If your fossil power plant is the cleanest type, i.e. natural gas, and is brand new and efficient, you'll produce about 1.06 tons, practically breaking even. Hang on a second, we have this thing called green energy. If we run our carbon capture plant off that, we no longer emit CO2. Problem solved, right? And no, if your energy mix contains any amount of fossil fuels, your carbon capture plant will be consuming green energy that could have been used to replace fossil fuel production. So if the carbon capture plant eats 1 megawatt of green energy, now a fossil fuel plant has to increase production by 1 megawatt to cover the whole. And you obviously can't increase green energy production at the turn of a dial. You can't control the wind speed or the sun's brightness. Okay, but what about nuclear? It's zero emission and we can increase production at the turn of a dial. Sure, but we should already be doing that. If you could turn up a nuclear power plant to cover the needs of carbon capture plants, well then why are we bothering with the carbon capture plant to begin with? Let's just turn up the nuclear plant by default to replace fossil fuel production, thereby reducing CO2 emissions. Okay, then what about a power grid that isn't connected to any other power grids and that operates on 100% renewable energy? Like Iceland, where the Orca plant is, not coincidentally. If we plug a carbon capture plant into that grid, that's absolutely a net decrease in CO2, right? No. If Iceland doesn't have enough green surplus to operate Orca, you'll have to build a solar farm, let's say, to supply it. But then why not build that solar farm in other countries to reduce their fossil fuel consumption, thus their CO2 emission? And if Iceland does have enough green surplus to operate Orca, why not just move stuff like server parks or data centers to Iceland from other countries to run them off the green surplus, thereby reduce—
Yeah, I guess the basic argument is that, like, it takes energy to do direct air carbon capture, and it's almost always a better use of that energy to just do the, like, to supply other social needs with the green energy that you're producing, if that makes any sense. I don't think there's literally no value to it whatsoever. It just seems that, like, in an environment where we're in right now, where we're fighting for every percentage point we can get of green energy being covered or covering our, like, energy demand, it's almost always going to be like a better, like, dollar per use, like, efficiency wise, to do anything else with it rather than this. I mean, maybe the technology will change, but even then I still get pretty spooked out by the idea of injecting 50 squadrillion tons of carbon directly into the Earth's crust. I don't know. All right, sorry, this got very myopic. Sorry, this got very, like, yeah, like, very, very wacky, very quickly, okay? Very quickly. All right, very good. Very good.